Last evening, when I got back to my hotel room, I grabbed the magazine that's actually in the hotel room, you know, those travel magazines for here in Seattle. And I started looking through it and counting how many product still life shots there were versus fashion shots. Vastly outweighed the fashion shots. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So I looked at two other magazines that I had with me and found the same thing. That still life and product photography is very much alive. And where there may be several thousand shooters looking to shoot for fashion and glamour and stuff because that's really sexy and cool and fun and everything, there's a lot less shooting for the others. So I really believe that product and still life photography has a great life ahead of it. And that right now it's maybe one of those not low-hanging fruits, or what you know, you're just gonna have to get up there and find the clients, but they're out there. Lots of them are out there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I love still life and photography. We're going to be doing a lot of shooting this afternoon, but I want to really talk about why it makes sense to me. Tabletop photography doesn't take up a lot of space, and that's a very big plus to someone who's starting out in photography. And you don't happen to have, you know, a nice 6,000 square foot, you know, studio at your disposal. Maybe you only have a living room or a den or something. You can shoot a garage. You can shoot this stuff in very small spaces. We have actually set up a space over here in about maybe a 8 by 8 squares we'll be looking at later today. So it's really kind of a fun thing to do. Your subjects rarely don't show up after leaving a text about recently deceased relatives or car failure. Those of you who shoot models from Model Mayhem, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The gear needs are more finite. You can set up a studio in your garage or in your house and using some basic tools, pretty much be done. I know with commercial photography, my equipment little equipment room just got full fast. I mean, when I'm doing overall commercial photography, people, location, all of that stuff, I'm ending up with, you know, more stands than you can imagine and booms and everything. Where a good tabletop photographer can really have a finite set of lighting gear, maybe 2 soft boxes, some scrims, and then the rest of it's pretty much go as, or, you know, doing it on the fly, cutting a little fill card for this or a little shiny card for that. So it's not a huge capital outlay to get going in it or to add it to your current genre. I'm a lighting guy. I'll be sitting at a restaurant looking at how the light plays off a sugar bowl, and everyone around me is thinking I'm, you know, sort of going into dementia or something. And I'll start moving the napkin around to, you know, fill it in and stuff. I'm still fascinated about it, just like I was when I was, you know, 15. It's never gone away, the fascination. And still life just really gives you that ability to play with light. And just the tools of light and bouncing light and shiny things. It's fun. I mean, and when I say it's fun, I mean from a very kind of a Zen-like fun thing, because you are creating something out of what exists. Whether it's a flash strobe or hot lights or window lights, you're really creating something out of a medium that is light. And as I explained in subject-centric lighting, we can't really see light. I can see that light up there when I look at it, and I can see Lori, but I can't see anything in between. I look right over there and I see Charles and Keith. I don't see anything in between. Can't see light, can only see what light reflects from. Something has to stop the light and reflect it back to me. Just think about that for a second. How really powerful understanding that is. Have a light, find something to stop it and reflect it back to you, and then you start to have fun. Shape, dimension, texture, it's all a blast. I put on here that it can be quite lucrative without spending a lot of money. And yesterday we were talking about a gentleman, a friend of mine, who was shooting drop-in pops at $10 a piece, and I said it was 250,000 products. He sent me a little email last night and said, no, Don, it was only 25,000 products. So I inadvertently added a zero to it, which he said, you realize at $10 a pop, it was like $2.5 million. Oh yeah, that wasn't that much, was it? No, but it was 25,000 at $10 a pop, and that's pretty good money. And it took him 31 days to do the job. So it's out there. Jewelry shooter, a friend of mine in New York, jewelry shooter, rarely bills under $3,000 or $4,000 per shot for jewelry for what his clients. And these are one-day shoots. You add rights and stuff onto that, can really, really skyrocket. And his studio is very simple, very austere studio. He shoots with very simple boxes and does everything else with his reflective materials. He's very stylistic in what he does, lots of very shallow depth of field, so he has created a niche. I will say that photography, let's see, last week I read that photography was dead, and we don't know what we're going to do after photography. And yesterday I read that digital photographers don't know what they're doing. So there's a lot of people out there who just don't have a clue. I'm sorry, photography's not dead, it hasn't gone anywhere, and digital photographers know exactly what they're doing, okay? But you've got to do it your way, and you've got to do it in a way that other people like. If you are doing the same thing as everybody else, no. And I don't want anyone to think that, that if you go into the drop-in pop business, you know, I shoot stuff on white, you know, for $40 that you're going to get rich. No. No, you've got to develop a style. But that's in anything, whether it's senior photography or weddings or food or fashion. If you're not kicking yourself up above your competition, you're going to drown in the crowd. So it's always the basic tools. Now you take all that stuff and you work it and make it yours. Okay, it's real important. Oh, by the way, I said a couple lenses all you need. It's really true. Studio still life photographer, if you've got 2 or 3 lenses, you're probably, if it's within your style, probably fine. You're not going to need those real long telephotos. Probably not going to need those real wide lenses. You're going to be in the 20 in a full frame situation, 24, 28, 50, 24, 28, 35, 50, 100 maybe. One of my favorite lenses in the studio is the 45 millimeter perspective control, the tilt shift lens, because I can do so much with it. We have one. We're going to be showing you tilt shift lenses and why you would want to shoot it with, that you can use them for more than making pictures that look like little, you know, those little goofy, I hate those things. Just hate them. Wide variety of clients, catalogs, websites, manufacturings, distributors. There's just a bunch of people that use this stuff. When Bob makes a widget, he needs to get photographs for his sales team. Then his PR company needs photographs to send out for press release. Then, of course, they're going to buy an ad in a couple of trade magazines, and they need pictures for that. That's probably a different type of product photography for each one of those things. The distributing company, maybe a third-party a middleman, maybe they're creating their own ads. They may need pictures of it. You may end up shooting that widget 4, 5, 6 times. Retail stores, point of purchase, this all comes generally from ad agencies. Ad agencies are a big buyer, but also magazines. And also right straight to the client, whether it's in Phoenix, one of my clients is a restaurant distribution. They sell restaurant stuff. And sometimes I'll shoot like steel grills or display items, you know. Really, it's not very glamorous. It's not glamorous at all, but it's a good job, and they pay real well because not anyone can do it. A steel clothing rack like you would find in a store on white seamless is not just simply put up an umbrella and shoot it. Trust me, I wish it was. Because sometimes you spend all this time on this photograph and you go, well, there's There's a display on white seamless. Gosh, I can't wait to Twitter that shot out. So, but it's a blast. Editorially, yes, from fashion magazines to Rod and Reel to Cigar Aficionado, which is a fantastic magazine with great photography, you'll find still life and product is really a big deal. In the airline magazine, I travel Southwest all the time, and they have the airline magazine. It's their best photography in there is the product and still life stuff. So it's really a lot of stuff that you can do. I put this on here because the stressful atmosphere. There was a time when I really loved that. At one point, I had 4 assistants and 2 second shooters and a full-time darkroom guy and a rep and an assistant to the rep, and the studio was just humming all the time. And you felt like, there were times when you felt like the circus master. You know, you got rings in the air and you just, you know, you push. Yeah, been there, done it. It's kind of quiet and fun when you can get into a space and you can put on your own music. You can take the time you need to keep tweaking it. You can't really do that sometimes under other situations. If it's a really big time client, sure, they're going to give you all kinds of leeway. But if you're shooting for a small time client in your town, in your city, and they've hired a model at $200 an hour for a 2-hour shoot, you have, well, I'm thinking 2 hours, because they're going to start getting kind of hinky at hour 4. You just added another $400 in model fees to them, and you're still tweaking it. If you're shooting a box of cigars or some jewelry, take what you need. Take what you need. Take the time to do it. Tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. If you've ever played with things, when I was a kid, yes, I built model cars. I think Revell still misses me as a client. I mean, we built model cars all day long, and then it was model boats and all that stuff. It sort of takes me back to those times when you're in a place and you're kind of tinkering with things and having a blast with your hands and with the light. And then at the end of it, you've got something to show for it. Your studio is your castle, and I believe that in any situation. I talked about it in the last workshop. You own your shoot. You own the set. It's yours. The moment you give it up to someone else, you've lost. You'll never get it back on that shoot. In a still life situation, pretty much the same thing. You own that set. Everything that you do, all the people around you, they're there to help you create that photograph. It's kind of neat. Your own hours are great, no time constraints. I mean, let's say you're a systems analyst for some big company and you work till 5 o'clock every day and you really would like to make some money with your photography, to do something. Well, you can shoot product from 7 o'clock to midnight if you want to. If you have, I'm going to back it up. Someone's out there going, well, if you're with an ad, if you're shooting ad agency stuff and you're working 9 to 5, then you got bigger problems than I can help you with. That's a tough one. But generally, the distributors or the company down the street and around the corner, they'll give you the stuff to take back to your studio and shoot. They don't necessarily go with you. I rarely have manufacturers come over to my studio to shoot, and I've got a studio. So I could shoot it in my living room. They wouldn't care if I did. They're just looking for it. After you build up your clientele, then you can figure out how to handle those things, those other things. But you can do this on your time, not necessarily with other genres of photography. Say architecture. You get home at 5 o'clock in Seattle in the wintertime, architecture is probably a non-starter because it's dark. Lifestyle, same thing. You're stuck to weekends. With this stuff, you're not stuck to weekends. This is a quick shot that I did for the book. It's in the book, and I think it's hanging on the wall. Yes, it is. Just to show you how much fun. I love music, and I play the drums. And last Monday, I bought a new set of brushes. And I had them with me when I was down at the studio. I thought, I think I'll shoot my new set of brushes. And I did. So that's an old snare drum that I have at the studio. And the folks at the studio, the guys I share the studio with, they just love that snare drum. I can hear them. They go, oh, he's got the snare drum out again. They just love it. I'm sure they do. If you love challenges, if you love getting into photography, getting into the meat of it, Still Life and Tabletop will provide you that in spades. It's always a challenge. I think some of the scariest words you'll ever hear from a client is, oh, this is a really easy shot. That's sort of the tip-off that, uh-oh. The second thing that follows that generally is, it won't take you long. It's a really easy shot, plus it won't take you long, equals we don't have much money. Yeah. Right? That's the one that they don't say at the end. And run from those, I'll tell you, because they're always wrong. It generally is not an easy shot, and it will take a lot longer, and they still have no money. So this is my old standby camera, and I brought it in to photograph it. And the reason I did is it's got all kinds of different surfaces and angles on it. Cameras are fun to shoot. They're really fun to shoot. They're really hard to shoot because you can't light the camera. What happens if you put a light on the camera? You get a specular. Just get a little hot spot from the light. So in this particular case, I didn't light the camera. I lit cards around the camera to show the camera. So that's a reflected card, and that's a reflected card, and that's a reflected card, and that's a reflected card. All of that is reflected cards. When you use what I call my subject-centric approach, and I want to do a shout out to Dean Collins. So if someone's on the chat room going, well, that's what Dean Collins, yes, he did. Yes, the great Dean Collins, absolute master of light. This is where I got my subject-centric lighting. And we miss you, Dean. You can take all of this and create all these great textures and colors and stuff so easily. Now this is a composite, by the way. This is 5 shots in Photoshop layered. 5 different shots, and then we put them in Photoshop and just basically paint it away. So shot number 1, shot number 2, shot number 3, shot number 4, shot number 5, and then we just put them all together in Photoshop. Would you like to learn how to do that? Yes. Cool, we're gonna do that during this workshop. When you have something that you want to take a photograph of, you've got the challenge of creating it. Could I have shot this differently? Oh, sure. Could spend all day shooting this thing. It would be a blast. It's a Twitter cricket. My alto saxophone, which as you can tell is quite old. Isn't the oldness cool? That's what I love about this saxophone. I love to shoot this old thing. I don't play it in public. There's that sort of restraining order thing. I don't really want to go into that, but I love to photograph it because of all the patina. Our job when you're doing tabletop and still life, our job is to make that thing look great. And the challenge is sometimes they give us stuff that doesn't look all that great. Brett, would you grab that widget box that they made for us? Sometimes we get the most bizarre things to photograph, and the client wants us to make them great. Because as I said yesterday, all photography is baby photography. It's all baby photography. Thanks, sir. Can you imagine being handed this? Can you get a shot of this? It's real easy. It won't take you much time. Yeah, it will. It's black, it's ugly, it's a thing. And my job is to make it look good, just like if Mrs. Jones came in with her baby, the one with the slightly droopy eye, and I've got to make that baby look good. I've had 3 babies. I love babies. I had 2 beautiful babies and one. she got to be beautiful real quick, but she's a little wrinkled when she... and she's probably watching right now going... you get something like this and you have to make a photograph of it. You better know how light works. First of all, it's black, it's ugly, it's got little shiny things on it, it's got a funky shape, we've got to create it. It's always a challenge, we've got to show it to the best. So every time you step up to the camera, you're going to have a challenge in front of you. Not necessarily in other genres. Sometimes you stand up in front, you get up behind the camera and there's this absolutely stunning model in front of you, and you've got great hair and makeup on her, and your job is to just get out of the way and let the picture record this amazing woman, you know, or guy, or whatever it is that you're shooting. And this, work for it. We have to work for it. Attention to detail, you can be sloppy in a lot of photography and fix it in Photoshop later. This becomes a little bit more of a real attention to detail kind of work, kind of business. Those of you in Project 52 know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of the critiques when we start getting into little things that were missed, you understand how tight it can be in there. And that makes it also a challenge and fun. And again, you're not constrained by time, you know, that you've got to get it done in 20 minutes. Or if you're doing architecture, the sun doesn't stop. It's like, oh, you know, could you come back just 5 more degrees? You know, nope, you get to come back tomorrow. That's how it happens there. And presentation is everything. When I talk about presentation, I'm talking about presentation of the product is everything. You can take a very wonderful, beautiful piece of jewelry or something and make a terrible photograph out of it. You have to make it all look good. And you could also make bad jewelry look great, because that's what you do. It's always kind of a fun business. I say creating images that matter for clients that pay. It matters to the client. Do you know if your photograph of this widget thing here is a good photograph and it causes the people who buy these kinds of switches and things to stop and look at that ad, and your photograph help increase the bottom line of this company's profit by 3 or 4%? That could be millions of dollars. We all know a little company down in San Jose named Apple, and Apple does not mince any dollars on the presentation of their stuff, their books and iPods and things that are photographed. They want them to be great because it helps sell product. Presentation is everything. So we take an inanimate object, try to make it look good. That's our job, and we end up with recurring clients. In many genres of photography, you're constantly looking for the next gig. In my town, Phoenix, we don't have a lot of what I call bread and butter clients, like you would find in Chicago, for instance, recurring clients. They need this type of work done every month. We don't have a lot of that, so you're always out looking for the next job. If you do a brochure shoot for a local hotel or golf course, they run the brochure, they're pretty much done for a couple of years. They're not going to put that brochure out, you know, every 6 months. But product manufacturers do it all the time. Product manufacturers are coming up with the next new whiz-bang. You know, right now over in Canon and Nikon and Sony and Olympus, they're coming out with the next new whiz-bang. Someone's going to have to photograph it. They are marketed to by companies with brochures. Hey, we'd like to build your next new whiz-bang. They've got photographs involved. So there's most of my product clients are basically fairly steady clients. They're also not out looking for the next big thing, the next cool photographer, like in fashion or beauty. You know, you get up to the top rung of the ladder, you spend half the time shooting and the other half the time kicking the people that are trying to pull you off the top of the ladder. That doesn't happen in this necessarily. You can really maintain a good client base. And when I say untapped markets abound, I would simply say to Irene, ask Irene, when we do the Project 52, and we're talking about clientele out there, there's lots, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's lots. In the pro group, what I had them do was to draw a circle around, put their house in the middle, draw a circle around for 25 miles, and start looking for distributors and manufacturers. The next week, they came on that, oh my God, even people in little towns were finding people who needed pictures of their stuff. They'd been out looking for seniors and weddings and all those things and driven right by Smith Distributing Company. And then they go in and find out, oh yeah, we have a guy, 80 miles from us do these tech sheets every month, do 6 or 8 shots, tech sheets. Well, I'm right down the street. Oh, that'd save us some time. Yeah, it sure will. So there's clients out there no matter where you are. Questions on this? I love tabletop photography, and I really do believe, as I will show you, that once you get to do it, you'll find clients. We will be talking on Sunday about my little specific way of creating that circle, what to look for, and how to find those people that you can shoot for.
That's exciting. I love that we're talking about the business of this on Sunday as well as the how-tos, all inclusive.
Yes.
Okay, so a question from our friend Sam Cox in Loveland, Colorado. Would tabletop photography ever be considered fine art photography?
Still life, absolutely. Gosh, I can't think of her name. She photographs. She photographs things that she finds, and I promise I will try to come back after lunch with the name. She photographs things that she finds, and it is fine art. There's lots of fine art still life photographers. There's a
Edward Weston.
Edward Weston, absolutely. He took a picture of a bell pepper once. I wish I had one. Do you know how many times he took the pepper picture?
At least 30,
Yep. You know why?
because that's number 30.
Yeah, because he couldn't keep his kids off their front porch. It's a 35-minute exposure. And the kids would walk across the porch and the camera would move and he'd go. But he did several good ones, but he also had some trouble with the kids and people walking across the porch during his 35-minute exposure. Yeah, absolutely. Edward Weston, there's a photographer who shoots what looks to be like, I would say, old French still lifes, the flowers and stuff. She shoots that and is vastly successful with that fine art. So there's all kinds of stuff, absolutely. Will shooting this be fine art photography? I'm going to go with no. This is just commercial. So, yeah.
Keith Photos is wondering how you make diamond sparkles, because when you shoot it, it can look flat most of the time.
Yes.
And that was another question from Falcons Bead. They're a jewelry photographer and they have a hard time keeping things from looking flat.
Well, first of all, digital's flat. Second of all, if you over soften we were talking yesterday about the big softbox. If you're going to shoot like diamond rings and you bring in a 4 by 6 foot softbox, you've killed all the facets of the diamond ring. Every one of them is going to have a reflection of that 4 by 6 foot softbox. So what I do is I keep my light source, my soft light source, as small as possible to light the ring. But the point of it is then to take a grid spot or a snoot and just hit the top of that diamond with like a little sliver of light. That's what I've done. And I've also used an LED, those little LED pen lights? I've taken an LED pen light, and after I've made the exposure, gone in and added sparkles with the LED pen light and then blend the two together in Photoshop. Back in film days, we would actually use, I used a grid spot. So you'd have your jewelry out there, and then I would grid spot right across the top of that jewelry to get what? A specular. I needed to create a specular. So that's one way. We have some very shiny jewelry that we're going to shoot. So they're not diamonds. At least I hope they're not diamonds. It's about a gazillion of them over there.
Those are real.
Okay.
They're real, I'm taking.
A clarification question from Cat's Eye 326 and Internos Photography. Can you explain or elaborate on what drop and pop means?
Yes. Drop and pop photography would be, normally it's considered like on a seamless or a little stand-up. They make product tables, for instance. Yeah, and what you'll do is, because the client needs, say it's a grocery store, they're going to run their monthly flyer of all the stuff that's for sale at the grocery store. So you get this little bag and you got a can of peas and you set it down and you take the shot. The lighting probably doesn't change unless you add wine bottles, and you might have to change it a little bit. But it's a can of peas. You've already lit this spot, so you drop it and you pop it and you drop it and you pop it. So it's just really fast production type work. That's what we're talking about, is fast production shots that are all the same of different products.